Well, good morning, District 1. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Councilman James Tate, and welcome to the May District 1 monthly meeting for 2021. As always, we have valuable information that affects your life in D1 and across the city of Detroit. We introduce you to some of the neighbors, some of our neighbors, your neighbors who are doing big things in our community. As many of you know by now, earlier this month, the federal court struck down a nationwide moratorium on evictions that was set to stay in effect until at least June 30th of this year. We have 36th District Court Chief Judge William McConaughey, who is here to discuss how 36D plans to handle what could be a major rush of tenants being pushed out of their homes during the current pandemic. We also will introduce you to one of our longtime North Rosedale Park residents who wrote a book chronicling the 100-year history, that's 1 century, y'all, 100-year history of one of our oldest and highly recognized communities in District 1. In today's Youth Spotlight, we have a 12-year-old spelling bee champion, reigning from the Grandmont neighborhood. He's racking up awards and making us all very proud. We're going to have him here today as well. We'll also give you a sneak peek at a brand new park being developed by one of our Brightmoor neighbors. He had a pretty cool event this past weekend or last weekend, and he's looking to provide a different perspective when folks describe his community. But first up, our hearts remain heavy over the unexpected loss of our beloved Wayne County Sheriff Benny Napoleon late last year from COVID-19 complications. Michigan law mandated that the county clerk, the prosecutor, and the chief probate judge appoint a successor within a designated time frame. And about a month later, they did just that when they appointed Raphael Washington as the Wayne County Sheriff for the next 2 years. Sheriff Washington was previously a deputy chief at the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. He joined the Sheriff's Department in 2019 following 24 years of service with the Detroit Police Department and overall 37 years of total law enforcement and management experience. D1, please join me in welcoming our very own, our very first guest, Sheriff Raphael Washington. So Sheriff here. Sheriff, can you turn your camera on? No, we can't wait until we get past this Zoom.
Yes, so I think I'm on now, right?
Yes, sir.
I was waiting to be let on, and then something happened, and I wasn't able to do the video, but here I am.
No worries. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Councilman Tate, my friend, and
Yes.
Good morning to District 1 community. I feel honored and blessed to be able to talk to you just for a few minutes because it sounds like you have a very exciting agenda, and I don't want to take up too much time. No, but yes, I am your new Wayne County Sheriff, and I'm going to stop saying new in a minute because I want to be the long-term Wayne County Sheriff. So, yes, nevertheless, as you said, Councilman, I am 37 years, 38 years this year in law enforcement, and spending my first 2 years of law enforcement in 1983 with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and then moving over to the Detroit Police Department in 1985 to 2009 when 24 years, Sheriff Napoleon, who had been my mentor and was still my mentor, even when he left law enforcement for about 8 years, he was appointed sheriff in 2009, and he asked me to retire and come with him to the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. And that's exactly what I did. I retired on a Friday from Detroit Police and went right with him Monday to the Sheriff's Office. And because that's how much influence and that he had over me, that's how much he had, he taught me so much about law enforcement and how to treat people. And that's very important in our profession. So here I am at the unfortunate demise, as you talked about, due to this COVID-19 situation that we're in, and I was appointed out of 14 people to lead this agency to 2022 next year, when I have to run again, when I have to run, period, for the first time to retain his seat, the rest of his remaining term, and then I'll run in 24 when I'm successful, because I believe that you speak things that are not as though they were. and I believe I'm going to be successful, and I'm only going to be successful in 2022 because I'm going to be earning the community, District 1's community support, and I'm going to be working hard to show you that I am ready to continue to be your Wayne County Sheriff. So how do we do that? We've been in the community, in your community, District 1, very often since I've been sheriff since April 1st. We went out to the community and we started doing some things that we felt we needed to do as it relates to quality of life issues. I couldn't imagine, having been about the community for 24 years with the Detroit Police Department, going into the sheriff's office, doing the mandated things that we have to do, which is the courts, the county parks, county jails. We have to do that. That's what we mandated to do. But I couldn't imagine not being about the community some kind of way, leading this agency, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. So we're in the communities all over Detroit, mainly assisting at the request of Chief Craig and the leadership of the Detroit Police Department to help them with the drifters and the drag racing that's going on in the city that's disturbing communities and it's really, in my opinion, tearing down the quality of life in the neighborhoods. We get those complaints as well, even as the sheriff's office. And so we partner with the Detroit Police Department, neighborhood police officers, and we're going in and doing some of the things that we need to do to address quality of life issues. We all know, big city, Detroit, I've done it. I know all about it. And there's a lot going on. And a lot of things are not in law enforcement's power, but we're out to try to solve them. And we try to combat those priority one crimes that have to be addressed. At the same time, the community wants those quality of life issues addressed as well. And they are being addressed, but sometimes it appears that maybe it's not addressed timely enough for the citizens and communities who live there. If there's an abandoned car on your block or around the corner and it's there for 2 or 3 days, that's a long time for the community, because we know if those little things aren't addressed, then they become big things and it becomes what appears to be acceptable in the community, and they're not. Loitering, speeders in your community, things like that. So what we do is we bring out a big mobile command post, and we bring out about 8 police cars, sheriff's office cars, and we work with citizen patrol, organized citizen patrols in the various areas of District 1 even. And we've been doing that. And we take it all over to the east side, to the west side, where we're out there with the Detroit Police Department every other weekend, again, dealing with the drifters. So I'm going to be about the community, even though we're with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and we're mandated to do those 3 things that I talked about, courts, parks, and jails. We're going to be about the community because I think that's important. So we have other things that we're doing as well. I came in the office January 15th and talked about curbing the pandemic in our jails and in our facilities, because as we know, that's very important, having lost our sheriff and 3 others in our facility and our staff that to the COVID. So that was important to me. We kind of flattened that and we got that going. We're testing inmates. We're as they come into our facilities, we put a lot on tether so that we could so that we could try to stop the spread within our facility, and we've done that. And we're monitoring those that are on tether. We don't put them on tether, we monitor them. The chief judge and the prosecutor puts them on tether. And when they feel like there's a candidate to get out of the jail so that we could try to flatten this curve. And so we've been doing that, but the biggest thing we got going, and we got going today, and I'm gonna let you in, Councilman, I'm the product in District 1. I'm the product of pastors and preachers in my family, a ton of them. And so
that's good though. We love the heart.
Give me the mic, and I'm going to go. But nevertheless, I'm not going to ask for offering, but I'm going to go. So here today we have a job fair. You know, we have almost 200 positions available for those that are interested and looking for jobs. And we're trying to target those that are leaving school, getting out of graduating from high school this June. And oftentimes, so we know that everybody's not going to college right away. And we're trying to target those that are not, that's looking to be gainfully employed, to come in making them almost $40,000 as an 18, 19-year-old, and with some overtime moving up to $50,000 and $55,000 in their first year. I think that's still a lot of money for an 18, 19, 20-year-old. And we're trying to create that path of employment before they go to college. Often, a lot of us went to college while we worked in law enforcement, and we are where we are now in leadership. So we're targeting those today. We have a job fair at Hartwell and 7 Mile, Greater Emmanuel Church, right in the parking lot. We got the big mobile command post out. We want you to bring your relatives and friends and family friends that you know, young people that need to be gainfully employed. We have the job for them. We will train them. We will have them ready, and they can start their pathway to adulthood and moving on forward to possibly and hopefully a career in law enforcement. We know that the young people and us in general, and police officers in general, are a little disenchanted with what we've gotten wrong in our society in policing over the last few years. And I often talk to them about, listen, I understand you're hurting, and I understand you don't want to be a part of what you've seen. That's a very small part. And if you want to be, you want to see the change, you have to be the change, and come in and be involved and help us as we train you, move these law enforcement agencies forward. And we want you to be part of the sheriff's office to do that.
Sure, I'm glad you brought up the job fair. What types of positions are available within the job fair? Of course, we know the deputies are available, but what other positions are available today if folks are, and then you got to give us a location and time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to do all that. And I appreciate that question. Right now, the jobs that we have available, immediately available, are the sheriff deputy jailer positions. And that's what we're trying to fill. And oftentimes people say, well, I just don't want to be the police, right? I don't want to do, this is a situation in our jails where you're basically providing security for those inmates that are already in custody. So you're not outside, and I've been out there on the enforcement side. We're on the custody side, and it's a little more contained. Oftentimes we have officers who have been deputies, jailers, not wanting to be certified through the Michigan Coalition of Law Enforcement Standards, not wanting to do that, wanting to be trained by the sheriff's office in the corrections portion of it, and just be about the custody of those that are unfortunately in our facility. So you don't even have to be outside to do that if you don't want to do that. You can come inside and do exactly what I said. So we have about almost 200 positions that are available for that kind of cause. And we're trying to fill them because we're working officers overtime, and we're mandating that they be forced to work over sometime. And it's unconscionable to me that we have to force people over and make them stay more than 8 hours. But that's where we are because we don't have a lot of staff. We don't have the staff that we need right now. And we're getting by, and we're doing it. So the job fair is going to be on 7 Mile of Hartwell at 10 o'clock today from 10 to 1. We're coming out. We're taking it to the street. We know we have to meet our young people at the social media sites, and we have to get on Facebook and Instagram, and we're doing all of that. But I'm a little older, and I'm old school now, and I believe sometimes you just got to take it to the street, and you got to let the people know that we are here. We're waving the flag and letting you know that we have jobs for you. So yes, that's today at 10 o'clock from 10 to 1. Greater Emmanuel Church, Schaefer and 7 Mile, but we're going to be on the Hartwell and 7 Mile side of the parking lot.
And I'm glad you talked about really engaging folks one-on-one, because I'm like you, I'm old school. I love connecting directly. This Zoom stuff is driving me crazy.
I understand.
I love giving a man hug, a pound, whatever it is. You can't do that during a screen. And so when we talk about engagement, you mentioned that you are going to make sure that the troops are in the community.
Yes.
let's say members of the community want to reach out to you.
Yes.
How does the community know when and when not to reach out to the Wayne County Sheriff's Department for what services are for someone else, so to speak?
Yes. So, and I'm going to leave it on the chat if I'm allowed to, but you can always go to www.sheriffconnect.com, www.sheriffconnect.com. And we will, and you can find everything that it is that we do and the services that we provide on that site. You can also, as I'm going to leave on the chat, you can call us at our office at 224-7491, 313-224-7491. I'm going to leave that as well. So you can call us and let us know that, listen, we have a radio patrol, or even if you don't, and you would just like to see us in your community, we are here for you, and we're waiting for those calls. We have a great community engagement person and a few people, because I've got people doing multiple things in the sheriff's office. And so Brother Keith Williams, who lives right there at he's one of our directors right at the Hartwell 7 Mile area. He's one of our recruiters as well as one of our community engagement people, and Regina Parks. And I'm going to leave those numbers as well. All you have to do is call them, call our office, and let us know, hey, we would like to see a Wayne County Sheriff's Office in our neighborhood. We have some abandoned cars. We have some folks loitering around stores that it doesn't make us, it makes us feel uncomfortable. We have speeders in our area. We will come out there 2 times. We will come out 1 week and we'll patrol those areas for 4 or 5 hours, and then we'll come back to follow up on the cars that maybe we've tagged that are abandoned, and just to check on the progress and things that happened from the first time we were there to the second time the next week we're there. So this is what we're doing, and I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, and I will say that, we get a lot of great feedback from residents about the engagement of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
I've got a question. I want to piggyback on what you mentioned earlier about how the department is addressing the pandemic.
Yes.
Because many times those are the folks that are behind, closed doors, so to speak. We don't get a chance to see them. And in some people's mind, hey, they deserve it anyway. These are criminals. Who cares about them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that question. But before we do that, I want to make sure that people are aware that we're going to allow an opportunity to ask Sheriff Washington a few questions yourself. Reggie, if you can put up that slide, our slide, our contact slide. So for those of you who are on Zoom, all right, here it comes. There you go, for public comment. If you're on telephone and you're on Zoom, if you want to raise your hand and ask a question to Sheriff Washington or any of our guests today, you can do so by dialing *9. That's if you're on the telephone. If you're on a Windows computer, it is Alt plus the letter Y. If you're on an Apple's computer, it is Option plus the letter Y. Again, telephone, you want to raise your hand and ask a question, it is *9. If it is a Windows computer, it is Alt plus Y. If you're using an Apple's computer, it is Option plus Y. All right, thanks again, Reg. So Sheriff, the question again, a lot of folks feel a certain kind of way about people going through the criminal justice system. As we know, you all house individuals that are in that in-between stage.
That's correct.
They may be guilty, may not be guilty.
That's correct.
So it's extremely important to make sure that we do everything we can to keep those folks safe, prepared for their trial, because we very well may have some innocent people who are going through this situation. So what are you guys doing to make sure that those that you house within the jail at Wayne County Sheriff's Department are safe from COVID-19?
Thanks for asking that, because most of them are innocent until they've been proven guilty, and we treat them that way. You're not guilty of anything yet, and hopefully you won't be, or maybe however that goes, you're in our custody and we're there to treat you the right way. So what we're doing now is, as those that have the misfortune of having to come be in our facility, we're making sure that we're testing every inmate that comes through our facility that has to stay there for any amount of time to make sure they're clear of the virus. And if they test positive, then we quarantine them. we put them in a section away from the others and make sure that we give them that 10 days or 7 days, whatever CDC is saying at that time. And we monitor them, and we make sure that before we put them in the general population, that they are clear of the COVID virus if they come in with it. Most of them are coming in and they don't have the virus, but those that have to, we're making sure that we do that. We're also giving them the Johnson, the one shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine while they're there, if they want it, because on average stay is like 7 to 8 days of those that are come to our facility. So it's constantly in transit and revolving around them coming in, going right back out. When they go out, we want those who want to have the virus, the vaccine, and those that want to go back to their families and feel that they're not taking anything back to them and they have an opportunity to receive the vaccine. We're doing that as well. And so we're trying to make sure that, and our staff, let me say our staff, mandated, required to take a test, to see if where they are every 2 weeks. Even if we've had the vaccine, we're still at this point saying every 2 weeks we need to test and see where we are. And for those officers and staff members who work in our facility, the testing portion is mandatory. The vaccine is still optional at this point, and we're trying to get at 100% for our staff to get vaccinated, to have the shot. But we're more than half, and we're excited about that. But testing is mandatory, and so that's what we're doing to try to curb the virus in our facility.
Yeah, I definitely want to go down the trail with you to find out the numbers of employees and staff who decide to take the vaccine versus those who don't, as well as those the prisoners who come in. How many decide not to? But we'll have to talk about that another day, because I know you got that job fair going on as happening right now. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to do that. But even more so, we want to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask you the questions that they have on their mind. I believe we do have at least one question this morning on Zoom.
And Councilman, I want to say I have time. I have a great staff over there. They're going to be there 3 hours. I'll catch up with them. This is important to me as well.
I appreciate you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
All right, team. Who do we have on Zoom? You have one hand. Have a caller.
Yes, from caller 534.
Caller ending in 534. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. You are on with Sheriff Raphael Washington. Question or comment?
Some questions. Good morning, Council Member Tate and Chief Washington.
Good morning.
Yeah. So congratulations on your post for now. And I want to share with you, I would consider this a compliment. I was speaking with my neighbor yesterday, and she said when she wants to call law enforcement, she calls the Wayne County Sheriff.
That's
and so is that, can we do that? Because, you know, I kind of like that concept too. But I mean, if people are feeling like either the police aren't responding, I had a very negative encounter with Wayne State Police when I was on my way to Aretha Franklin's funeral with the pastor from her church. And we got pulled over by Wayne State Police, and they left me in the street and took him to jail. And then later they said that they couldn't believe I lived in the community. Anyway, I didn't find them very sensitive, but I did like Benny Napoleon. And so I just wondered if residents can do that if they feel more confident calling there. The second thing I wanted to say, well, two more things. Is there anything you can do about jail food? Because if people are just getting peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or scary bologna sandwiches, you know, that's not really good for their mental or physical health. And I know you may have security issues about what kind of utensils to use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully the food can be improved. The third thing I want to say is I hope you have culturally competent people at the jails. I had a very negative experience at the Detroit Detention Center where I was dealt with people who were not culturally competent, and they just decided to forcibly strip me in a room in a cell with a camera in it to put me in a Bam Bam suit. And there's no information there that shows they did a due diligent investigation about whether I was suicidal or homicidal. And then Chairman Tate, one of the EPU officers downtown gave me a hard time, and he said, I saw the video. So I'm afraid those police are doing some really dirty things. And I've also heard concerns from a lady who was trying to help people escape human trafficking, that there have been other kinds of like voyeur problems in the jail. So I will finish with that, but can people call the sheriff when they want help? Can you improve the food for people? And can you make sure people don't get abused like that in the jail? You need to have culturally competent people who do a thorough review before you just abuse someone and strip them and humiliate them to put them in a Bam Bam suit in a cell with a camera in it.
All right. Thank you so much, Carla. We appreciate it. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
I'll hit that right quick for you. First of all, with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, we are not first responders for any of the 43 cities and townships in Wayne County. We are not first responders, and that's very different from counties all over America, really, but that's just the way it is in Wayne County. So because we aren't first responders to Detroit or any other cities in Wayne County, you must call 911 if you have an emergency and you need the police to come see about your situation. Now, what we do, again, is deal with some quality of life issues, working hand in hand with Detroit Police Department. If they need us, they call us to come help them assist with whatever situations that are going on. But if you have an emergency, and I need to be very clear, you can't call the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. You have to call 911 to get your local police department there. Now, if you have some things that you want to see addressed that are like quality of life issues, not life or death, it's not an emergency, things like that, then yes, you can call us and we will come and see about whatever that situation is. But I want to be very clear. Carl, I need you to tell me you understand the difference in what I'm saying, correct?
She's off now, Chair.
Okay, hopefully she does. So, because that's very important, Councilman. I don't want people to say, you know, that's serious. So the jail food portion of it, we did cut back when the pandemic hit, and it was it was strong, and we were still trying to figure it out. And there was no movement in the jails, and things happened that we had to shut down. The workers were off. The contracted company that we use, they were contracting the virus, and they were shut down. And so we had to go to sandwiches and things like that to make sure people were fed, but to make sure that we were trying to figure it out like everybody else in America was. How do we best do this and keep people safe and alive? Because that's when we were losing tons of people to this virus. So we changed that. Now we're back. We're serving hot food. That happened only for a few months. And so that's not an issue at all. Talked about the cultural situation and staffing in our jails. Our Wayne County Sheriff's officers and those that work in our jails look like Wayne County. It's a very diverse group of sheriff deputies that work with us. And we'll make sure that we're sensitive to anything that deals with those cultural issues. And if we have those that are coming in from a Middle Eastern place and their community, and we have Middle Eastern staff members. My undersheriff, the second person in charge of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, is a Middle Eastern, living American, Arab American, and we have all kind of cultural diversity, diverse staffing in our jail. So we're very sensitive to the things that the different cultures believe in and need to see. So that's not an issue in the Wayne County Sheriff's Office at all. So hopefully I've answered your questions, and if you need to talk further about those kind of things, I'm all ears. My staff is, and you can call us at 224-7491, ask for Sheriff Washington. I promise you, I'll talk to you about whatever it is that you need to hear from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
Well, Sheriff, we appreciate you being here again. We know you have a heavy schedule. You got a great team, but it's nothing like being there and seeing the boss, as we all know.
That's why I'm there on a Saturday. I'm working 7 days, 24/7. I have to earn the support of the community. I don't just come in and say, well, when it's time for election or whatever, well, here I am. You're going to know me. And I wanted to say to the caller, as she talked about how she loves, everybody loves Benny Napoleon. I've been with him 38 years. I'm telling you now, if you love Benny Napoleon, you're going to love me. I could not have been with him that long, and he carried me with him for that long of a time, and haven't gleaned and learned the things that I need to learn to take care of the people. Again, he always told us, if you take care of the people will take care of you. And that's right. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I have done. It's not new to me. A lot of you know me, and you'll continue to see me in the community.
Yeah, you got a track record, and I think it's one that for those who don't know, once they're exposed to what you have done and what you plan on doing,
yes,
be very, very impressed, as I am. And I, again, thank you for joining. I know that on behalf of District 1, we all thank you for joining us today, this morning, to laying out your plans. And we want to make sure we stay closer in contact. So hopefully we can get you back on to give us an update on things as we get further down the road. We appreciate
absolutely.
it. And we'll make sure we have your contact on at the end of the meeting as well, for those who want to get in touch with the Sheriff's Office. So again, thank you again. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you very soon. Be safe, be well, and God bless, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. God bless.
Yes, sir. All right. That was a great interview. We love having Sheriff here and introducing folks that you may or may not know that are very important in your life. Now, here's somebody that you may or may not know as well, and very important to members of at least one very important community in District 1. She has lived in North Rosedale Park for 29 years and was tapped by the North Rosedale Park Community Association to author a book that detailed the community's 100-year storied history. The title of the book is simply enough. Let me grab it right here. Oh, let me get out of the way. The title of the book is North Rosedale Park, 100 Years of History. D1, please join me in welcoming author, and our neighbor, Rose Love. Rose Love, good morning. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning to everyone.
All right. So, Rose, can I just call you Rose, or do you want me to call you Mrs. Love?
Oh, please call me Rose, please.
All right. Just want to make sure, because we go way back, and I don't want to act like I'm too familiar. But Rose, what led you to author this book? Because we're getting a lot of buzz about it, which is really, really good. Hearing a lot of great things about it. Like I said, I've got my signed copy here as well. But what led you and the Community Association to write this book about North Rosedale Park?
Well, so in 2019, I was on the internet, and I was, I don't know how I came across this article, but it was in reference to Rosedale Park being founded in 1916. So I thought, wait a minute, if Rosedale Park was started in 1916, when was North Rosedale Park founded? So I looked up and found out, oh, wait a minute, we're 100 years old right now. So at that point, I'm always one of those people that always like, we should be celebrating whatever we can. So I made a recommendation to our association board and said we should celebrate the centennial, and also we should write a book. And I said, if somebody's going to write a book, I'll be willing to do it. So Sherwood Forest had done a book very similar for their centennial. And I thought, and I only saw it because my coworker, and Councilman Tate knows Elena Farmer, I got to give her a shout out.
Absolutely.
She designed their book. And so I had watched her, she was showing me how it was progressing. And so here was the idea, oh my goodness, we can do a book just like that, and we can chronicle 100 years of North Rosedale Park. And that's how that came to be. And so I started on that late 2019 and into 2020. And I spent the pandemic while everybody else was cooking and improving around their house and, you know, doing whatever they were doing, gaining weight. I was writing and got it done. And so by It took me an entire year to get it done. And so, but it's been a labor of love. I truly like history, and it was wonderful to be able to chronicle all that's happened in this neighborhood over 100 years. It was wonderful.
So, Rose, I think you have a PowerPoint that you want to show us, or
Yes, please.
yeah, to talk a little bit about some of the things that you were maybe not aware of beforehand, but things that you found out through your research. So feel free. I see Reggie's pulling up that PowerPoint, and feel free to take it from there.
Okay, Reg, you can hit the next slide, please. So, so as I've said, North Rosedale was platted in 1919, and it was an extension of Rosedale Park. So at that time, the whole area was called Rosedale Park. And but there was a decision to expand north of Grand River. So our boundaries are Southfield on the east, Grand River on the south, Evergreen on the west, and McNichols on the north. And that at that time, there were, very few homes, and it was very sparsely populated. But now it's grown to 1,700 homes, and we are now part of Grandma Rosedale. So that's Grandma number 1, Rosedale Park, North Rosedale Park, and Minnock Park. So that's kind of the framework for how this got started. And if you can hit the next slide, Reggie. So, and we talked a little bit about how the book came to be. So I talked to about 40 plus residents, former residents, current residents, and just got their take on what it was like living in North Rosedale Park. So I used, and unfortunately I couldn't get to the library because that was shut down. So everything was online or over the phone. And then I also got a lot of information from Redford Historical Society, because at that time, Rosedale Park was a part of Redford Township. So in the early early 1920s, we were all a part of Redford Township. And so I went to that particular Redford Historical Society to get information, because they had maps and books, and I was able to grab things from that. And then one of the things also that was really quite remarkable, we have, North Rosedale is unique in that we have this community center right on Scarsdale, Breton, Glastonbury, and Avon are our boundaries for that, the community house and the park. But everything you ever wanted to find was in the community house. Now, the advantage of that is this: if we had not, we didn't have a community house, where would all this information be? In people's basements, or lost. So it was a treasure trove of information at the community house. So that is what really made it easier to do. There were pictures, there were documents, minutes, there were all the tattlers from the mid 1920s are still there.
And
So
some folks may not know what the Tattler is.
Okay, so we have a monthly, Reg, you get the next slide for me. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out, a newspaper, and the Tattler is done, and it talks about what's going on in the neighborhood. So I use those as a source of information, because the Tattlers back then carried everything. It was like a newspaper. They had everything that was going on, who was going on vacation, who moved into the neighborhood, who had a baby, who got married. It was all of that in there. So that was a great source of information.
It was like the social media before social media came
Yeah,
out.
exactly. That's what it felt like. And then, I just always chuckled about some of the things they would put in there. They would call people out in the newsletter as well. So
that's social media for you.
Exactly. So one of the things I can say that I learned from this is whatever you're going to do a project, just double the time frame. Because I thought it would take me maybe 4 to 6 months. It took an entire year. And thank goodness I had a deadline, because I could still be writing. It was just that much to incorporate. And I noticed how things were repeating themselves. So, life is cyclical, as point number 2 says, is nothing new. So the same complaints people had in 1930s, 40s, 60s, 70s are the same complaints. Things like, I never got my monthly newsletter. Where is that? Or the article came late to be submitted to the editor. Kids are running around out of control. Same complaints today, right? Trash being picked up in a timely manner. Same problems even back then. So that was always interesting. I thought it was interesting to see that, oh my goodness, these are the same issues that some of the people who lived in many years ago were facing. Detroit is a city of strong neighborhoods. That's the thing I noticed as I was researching, that Detroit has some really remarkable neighborhoods. I noticed also that in order for anything to be done, you need people to help get it done. So there was a lot of residents in this area who were very committed. And so things got done because they worked together. North Rosedale residents are truly people that won't accept no for an answer. I was chuckling, laughing constantly how the neighborhood residents here would always be signing petitions, filing lawsuits, writing letters. If they didn't get it done, they were going to make sure that whatever the issue was, they were going to get City Hall's attention or whoever powers it be. So there were a lot of lawsuits back in the day. There were petitions galore and a lot of door-to-door canvassing for whatever issue was being addressed at that time. Now, and this one here about kids can be a mess. Oh my goodness, I'll talk a little bit about vandalism. That was a problem in North Rosedale for years, decades upon decades. All right. And then, like any other neighborhood, we're not immune from any kind of issue with crime, vacant homes, or lack of engagement by residents. But the residents in this neighborhood kept this neighborhood upright, afloat because of their efforts. So those are things I learned. So as I stated earlier, North Rosedale was part of Redford Township. And in 1925 is when the residents voted to be annexed to Detroit. So at that time it was Rosedale Park, which included Rosedale Park and North Rosedale, Brightmoor and Five Points voted to become a part of Detroit. That was in 1925. And this is just a couple pictures of what it looked like back then. Grand River looking west. Don't know exactly how far on Grand River this is, but it gives you some perspective. And then this is at the intersection of Grand River and 7 Mile Road. And those around the 1925, 26. Next slide, please. So I have already talked about the Rosedale Park Tatler, and this is one from 1926. So, and some of these tattlers were, like 20 pages long. So I reviewed every last one of them. And sometimes I had to remind myself, Rose, you can't get into the weeds, because I would get into stuff like, oh, I wonder where that person's living. I wonder what they're doing now. And it was a lot of that. So I had to remind myself, you got to do a broad stroke of the history. You can't get too deep into it, because I'm a newspaper reporter. And so by trade, I'm always like trying to dig deep into what is this about? How did this get resolved? What happened here? And sometimes I found myself doing that, but I had to remind myself, you have to do a broader stroke. So there are other stories I want to write, that kind of branch off from what we did for the book, but I'm working on right now doing some just kind of re-enhancing and revisiting some of the things I wanted to do, but weren't able to incorporate in the book. Now, the two organizations that really made North Rosedale really run was first the Women's Club, Rosedale Park Women's Club, that was incorporated in 1923. And if you see the picture on the top right, this is a picture of the club, members of the club in front of one of the really, really historic homes in this neighborhood. It's probably the most unique home in the neighborhood. It's on Breton Drive. It is owned by Chris and Carol Allen. It's a beautiful home, and it has a slate roof. It's just really beautiful. So this is one of the clubs that was started, and it was all women. And then on the bottom on the right, this is the North Rosedale Park Civic Association. It started in 1923 as well, all males, and it wasn't until 1972 that women were allowed to join. Next slide, please. Now, the good old days, question mark. We always think the good old days are like, things are always better back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And I'm here to say they weren't. There were problems then. So first, the vandalism. As I was saying earlier, that kids can be a mess. There were so many incidents of vandalism around the neighborhood that was recorded in the Rosedale Tatler. And this is one of the examples, and I was mentioning earlier, they would call you out. So this was one of the letters that was in the Tatler, telling people, this is a public disgrace, and kind of explaining some of the situations that had gone through. I think the thing that I found interesting is that it kept repeating decade after decade. And even in the book, I even said, what was to be a decade without mentioning the vandalism that happened in the 1940s or 1950s, because it happened so much and so often. And in one particular episode in October 1955, there were 8 different incidents of vandalism within that 1 week. And this is what happened. That was probably the worst, but it was a big issue with vandalism in some of the decades in this book. And then the other thing, of course, that was really quite pronounced, as in any neighborhood where it's all white, it's a challenge when you want, it needs to be, there's a desire to integrate it. So it wasn't until the 1970s, early 1970s, that African Americans began to move into North Rosedale. And of course, they were met with some resistance, because if you can see, this is a copy, a part of a deed from one of the homes. And it says, unless otherwise above provided, all of the aforesaid terms, conditions, covenants, restrictions shall be operative and enforced until January 1st, 1950. And you had to be of the Caucasian race. That's not unusual. Racial covenants are not unusual. But what was weird is at some point in the 1940s, we had the United States government had outlawed them. But here was North Rosedale Park residents trying to get people to keep the covenants intact after they had already been outlawed. So it wasn't just a matter of racism, there was also classism. And that was very evident. So if you weren't of a certain ilk, certain status, you weren't going to be welcome here. So no Jewish people, of course. Italians, no. Anybody, unless you were from a kind of a European background, that was, the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, that was the focus here. And people I interviewed told me that it was quite evident that if you were not of that certain status, that you weren't accepted. Now, that didn't mean you couldn't move here, but you were not going to be included. And so it wasn't just African Americans, it was also a certain class of people that they felt were important to be in this neighborhood. Next slide, please. So what makes North Rosedale Park unique? First, it is the only neighborhood in Detroit, and I don't know if I can even go as far as Michigan or Southeast Michigan, that has its own community house and park. And for those who live here, and even those who are from the surrounding neighborhoods, this is a center of our neighborhood. This is where everything takes place, at the community house. So first, it was a clubhouse. It was a small, if you see the picture in the middle, it was a little small place. It was built in 1924, and it was how, where the men gathered, okay, at that time. And if you see in the left picture, that's the men actually building the clubhouse, because it was built by the men of the neighborhood. And then in 1939, it was replaced with the present building, the community center, community house, and that was in 1939. So that's what makes it so unique. And one of our residents said to me, where else can you go in a neighborhood and meet somebody who lives on the East End, maybe on Ashton, and meet and know somebody from the West End, which is Evergreen, unless you have some place where you can gather. And so the community house and the whole park has been like the gathering place, and also the place where neighbors meet other neighbors and come together to work together to improve our neighborhood. Okay, next slide, please. The other thing that North Rosedale Park is known for is the beautiful homes, the architecture here. And I love the fact that, in some subdivisions, you go to, and every house looks the same, and you go, okay, what house you live in, and you can't describe it. You need to have an address, right? But somehow with North Rosedale Park, the houses look different, and thank goodness for that. So I can tell somebody, I live in the Cape Cod style house, colonial, red shutters, and nobody's going to get it mixed up with my neighbor next door on one side or the other, because their houses are distinct. And there's some beautiful homes here with quality materials used. Next slide, please. The other thing, Reggie, go to the one right, there's a cup, yep, number 10, please. Okay, these are the first homes that were built in North Rosedale around 1919. They are all on Breton Drive, and there are 4 of them. And the thing about those homes is when you go by them, you don't look at them and think these homes are 100 years old, but they are. And they look really, really well put together, as is true of houses all in Detroit, because of the workmanship and the quality of the materials that were used back then. These 4 homes are all on Breton Drive within 2 blocks of each other. And they were the first homes built in the park. Next slide.
Wow.
All right, Rosedale Park is also known for the many people who lived here. And there were leaders then and now that made up our community. I thought it was interesting that we had 2 mayors that lived in Detroit. Albert E. Cobo was a North Rosedale Park resident. And, you know, I guess we could say infamous for that matter. But Cobo was our mayor. And interesting enough, I guess because Rosedale Park has such a reputation for being civic-minded, politically engaged, very focused on what was going on, he chose to move here. And it was like, because he knew he would get the support. He was running for mayor. He moved, I think, a year before he was running for mayor, moved to North Rosedale. And the one thing about this community, they embrace whomever is running for office. So the residents were truly behind him. And also, remember this, he also was in keeping with what their focus was, which is to keep it like it was. We want white people, and that's it. And so he was embraced because he was not going to encourage any kind of intrusion of any race into any neighborhoods where they were predominantly white. And so he was kind of in step with the leadership of this neighborhood. Also, Roman S. Gribbs lived here. And the interesting thing about him is when he got elected, the city did have the Manugian Mansion, but he chose to live in North Rosedale. He wanted his family to have a family neighborhood kind of focus. And so after he got elected, he stayed here with his family. He only served 1 term, but and was involved because I saw his name throughout the Tatler. Even his wife, Kathleen, excuse me, she was very involved. So he wanted his family, and he had the 4 kids. He wanted them to stay engaged with other people. Didn't want them to be isolated. So Albert Cobo and Roman S. Gribbs, and there's a number of city council members, including our own Mr. James Tate is a resident, and there's a lot of other people. So these are just a list of some of the people who lived or still live in North Rosedale Park right now. And the list is long. So Reggie made me cut it down because I had 3 panels. He said, Rose, make it 1. So here we have just the 1, but there's a number of people who have lived here, who have been influential in our country, in our state, and definitely in our city. And so we have a really rich heritage here. And I love living in North Rosedale Park. And because of that, that's why I wrote the book, because it was truly a labor of love.
My goodness, Rose, this was great information. We appreciate it. So a little story about me. Yes, I live in North Rosedale Park. I love my neighborhood, love my neighbors. But what made me really want to live in this neighborhood was not the beautiful homes, wasn't all the neighbors, none of that stuff. Wasn't a community house. It was when I was a kid. As you know, on Halloween, North Rosedale Park was crazy with kids. It was huge. When I was a kid, it was a number of years ago. But I remember Emmanuel Stewart gave out full-size candy bars. And I said, you know what? That's where I want to live, Mom. That's where I want to live. So from that point on, when I was a kid, it wasn't the house, it was the fact that they gave out full-size candy bars over there. So everybody has their reason. That's mine. But we appreciate you for being here and providing that information. I do think we do have at least one caller who has a comment or a question that they wanted to ask you. So Aisha, who do we have who has a question, or is it on Facebook?
The question was on Facebook.
All right, who do we have? What's that question?
Yes, we have one question from Facebook from Mr. Jerome Drain. Actually, 1.5 questions. The first one is, how do they get a hold of the book? And the second was, what date or what time period did North Rosedale actually become integrated?
So let me start off by saying the book, as I said, is a labor of love. And so Rose Love is not profiting from this book. It's all going to the neighborhood association. Thank goodness for that, because we need it in the light of this pandemic. You can purchase the book online at North Rosedale Park Civic Association website, and it is nrpca.org/book, nrpca.org/book.
And for those folks who are looking right now on the screen, we actually have it on the slide. If you take a look at the bottom of that slide, that information is there. Keep going, Rose, I'm sorry.
And you can also purchase it through Pages Bookshop, and these are 2 neighborhood businesses. Pages Bookshop, and that's our bookstore in the area. And then also Public Square Coffee Shop, which used to be Town Hall Cafe or Always Brewing. You can purchase those books there. And if you know me personally, you can also reach out to me and I can get you a book as well. But yeah, so the book is $39.95 and all proceeds go to the Neighborhood Association. And I think you will really enjoy reading it. Now, in terms of integration, it was around 1972, 73 that African Americans began to move into the neighborhood. I could not track down who was the very first family. However, I did get some leads. And so that's going to be some of the things I'm going to work on to continue to write some of the history about North Rosedale. And if there's ever a republishing of the book, then I will add that to the book.
Rose, have you talked to Fred Russell in the neighborhood?
I did. Matter of fact, Fred was one of the ones who told me about some of the incidents that he ran up on. He made a comment out, and the book does not sugarcoat anything.
Well, for those who don't know, Fred Russell is an African American who lives in did we just lose her? There she is, in North Rosedale Park. He's lived over here for quite some time, and so Rose, I just wanted to make sure people knew who Fred Russell was. Great individual, great family. Well, he was a member of the Boy Scouts. He was one of the first and only at that time African Americans on the Boy Scouts. So go ahead, Rose.
He told me that. So the book does talk a little bit about some of the incidents that happened, and he was the one I interviewed in terms of his situation. He said he got chased numerous times. He had been in a couple fights, and he said he was one particular fight that so he was fighting somebody, and an adult pulled up and said, "What is going on?" And he was explaining himself about what had happened, because he said these kids had jumped on him. And his response was, "That's why we don't want you over here in the first place." And Fred said that stuck with him. But he said the thing that also made it easy was because that wasn't a reception with most people. He said those things stuck with him, but he told me that if I look at in totality, my whole experience in North Rosedale Park, he said it was a great upbringing. There were incidents, but he said the good outweighed the bad. So even when he became an adult, where he moved, he came back to North Rosedale. He grew up here and he bought a house here. So his experience may have had some, bumps in the road, but overall, he enjoyed living in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, Rose, again, we thank you for being here. I don't think we have any additional questions. It doesn't appear. You did a great job with your presentation, a wonderful job with the book. You want to hold it up? Do you have it with you as well?
I have it with me.
All right, we're going to hold it up just so they can see it again. This is North Rosedale Park, 100 years of history. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank
Road
you for
love,
having me.
our neighbor. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well this weekend. You take care. God bless.
All right, thank you.
All right. Coming up next, we have, I always talk about it, my favorite segment of the D1 Monthly Meeting, and this is our Youth Spotlight. Today we have a 12-year-old, sixth grader from the Grandmont community. His name is Cameron Jennings, and he's also joined, look at that, he's joined by his dad, Eric. Cameron is a 3.7 GPA student. He aspires to be an NBA player and an entrepreneur. He attends Bates Academy. The reason why we have him here today, all those great things to be said, he's also a spelling bee champion and a past math bee champion as well. D1, if you can please join me in welcoming none other than Cameron Jennings and his dad, Eric Jennings, as well. Thank you guys for being here this morning. How are you today?
We're doing good.
Doing good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so I see those big trophies behind you. Tell us what you get those trophies for.
I got them for coming in like top 4 or 5 for math bees and spelling bees for my old school, Charles H. Wright Academy, and the new school I'm currently in, Academy.
So Cameron, what got you interested in the spelling bee? I still remember a word I will never forget. I was in, I think it was the 6th grade, and it was chrysanthemum. And I remember it was me and one other person, and the word came up and I added an extra Y, and I got it wrong. I never will forget that moment. It crushed me. And you know what? I never, ever, ever participated in the spelling bee again because I was so hurt. So what made you want to continue to be a wordsmith and, to the point where now you're a spelling bee champion? What inspired you to keep learning those words and showing off?
Well, I'm more that type of kid who likes learning stuff in school or anything when it comes to that and that. And I also like competing when it comes to different things I like or want to do. For spelling, I like to learn new words. I like to spell. I like to be out in the crowd. I just like to learn new things and compete with other people.
So Dad, 3.7 GPA, I always talk about when kids achieve like that, spelling bee champion, math bee champion. Clearly, the kids themselves, it's something within them that gets them moving and driving, but there's something that you all poured into them as well. What do you think it is that leads Cameron to excel the way that he has academically?
Well, his mother and I are both college graduates. We come from a family, a lot of people in our family are educators. Many of them have worked for Detroit Public Schools for a long time. So it's kind of been embedded in all of us for quite some time. So we just push our children to do the best in all aspects of life. And education is definitely very important. And so that's one of the things that we really try to hammer home and push them to do the best that they can.
All right, you got brothers and sisters, Cameron?
Yes, I have one sister. Her name is Anna.
Oh, we can't hear you. What was that? One more time, a little closer.
I have one younger sister.
Okay, so you're the big brother. So as the big brother, you got to lead by example. So it sounds like you're doing a great job doing it so far, right?
Yes.
So I read somewhere that you have an individual who is your inspiration, someone who you want to look, who you want to be like when you grow up. Who's that person? You can say it. Let's say it. Let the world know.
Because I kind of want to be my dad, because I kind of want to be like my dad, because his job is kind of like helping people and he likes doing his job. And he's also very smart and strong. So I want to, when I grow older, I also want to own a company to help other people.
Oh, awesome. So the math bee, what, again, we know you like words, but what made you interested in math? That's a pretty hard subject, isn't it?
Well, I love math. I love math, in my opinion. I competed in math bee in my old school. I've been trying to compete in my new school, but I don't know if I do. So here are my two math bee trophies. Here's when I was in second grade, I came in third place, or second place, I should say, in math bee in 2017. And then this math bee trophy. For this math bee trophy, I was the champion fourth grade.
That's pretty good there. So guys, let me ask you this, and I want to pivot just a little bit. This has been a very challenging time for a lot of people during this pandemic, and just want to kind of get your perspective of how school has been. Let's go all the way back to last year around this time when it really hit us and caught everyone off guard. How did you all, fare at that time, Dad, and transitioning now to this school year? How has schooling been during the pandemic for you and Cameron?
Well, it's definitely been a challenge. It's been new for all of us. Luckily, Cameron is very bright. He's very attentive. So fortunately, he doesn't need a lot of help with his schoolwork. He's very dedicated to doing well. He participates, pays attention in class, so he gets the information and being a little bit more mature now. Thankfully, he's able to do a lot of it on his own. But it was definitely a transition for a while. Hopefully, with everyone being vaccinated, we'll be able to go back to school in the fall. I know my kids, they miss their friends and hanging out and going on the playground and those types of things. So it's been a challenge, but they've been great through it all. They've been patient, they've been understanding, much more than I thought they would be. So I'm very thankful for that.
So Cameron, let me ask you real quickly, and it sounds like you have not gone back to school yet, and they have the precautions still in place. The first day you're able to go back to school, what's the first thing you want to do?
The first thing I would do, right? So the first thing I would do is disobey every rule, run to the hallway, say hi to everybody I don't know. That I do know. And then I'll hug them.
Okay. It's been a while since we've been able to do the hugs. I talked about that earlier. I missed that myself. So go ahead. I didn't hear you say it one more time.
I've been hugging my family for a whole year, and I'm starting to get tired of it.
Well, you know how it is when you're a kid, Dad. So I know you don't take any offense to that. You remember how it was. So Cameron, we wanted to provide you with an award of recognition today, but we're going to ask you, since you're the spelling bee champion, we know it shouldn't be too hard for you, right? Shouldn't be too hard at all. So we got three words, and it's not chrysanthemum. We got 3 words for you to spell. All right, you ready? The first word, acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement.
Yes.
ACKNOWLEDGEMENT. Acknowledgement.
That is correct. And I had to look it up. That is correct. That's 1. All right. So the second word, independence. Independence.
Independence. INDEPENDENCE. Independence.
You are correct, sir. Man, the tension is building up in here. I feel it right now myself. All right, we got one more word for you. One more word. All right, you ready? Drum roll. The final word, encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia. ENCYCLOPEDIA. Encyclopedia.
Give this man a round of applause. Great job. Awesome, awesome. Look at him. He's just excited. I love it. I love it. You're making me feel good this morning. So Cameron, through the magic of TV or internet, whatever we call it, we are now going to offer you your spirit or your award of recognition. Do you have it in your hand as well? Do you have one? All right, there's the magic hand, drops off the award of recognition, and now Cameron has his as well. All right, on behalf of the residents of District 1 and the city of Detroit, we would like to recognize you for all of your achievements. Cameron, we appreciate you, we love you, we want to continue to support you as we move forward. And you just let us know how we can do that. Dad, if Cameron doesn't have the number, we know you have it. Reach out to us and let us know how we can continue to be a part of your success moving forward. Again, congratulations. God bless you all. Be safe and be well. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you somewhere in the neighborhood or in somewhere even bigger than that, because you got a shining star on your hand. Congratulations again, guys. You all take care.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Man, it just always makes me feel good, this segment. Next up, I talked about it earlier. We do have the moratorium that was lifted on a federal court lifted the nationwide moratorium on evictions earlier this month. Joining us today is the Chief Judge of 36th District Court, William McConaughey. Just a little bit about Chief Judge McConaughey. He was appointed to the 36th District Court by Governor Jennifer Granholm on July 12, 2010. He was then appointed to the position of Chief Judge by the Michigan Supreme Court just January 1st, 2020. He's the 9th Chief Judge to serve since the creation of the court by Michigan Legislature in 1985. And joining us today, without further ado, is Chief Judge of 36th District Court, my friend and a very civic-minded individual, and you'll hear a lot more about what's on his heart. This is Chief Judge William McConaughey.
Councilman, he is logging in now, so give him a couple minutes.
All right, logging in. He's got a long day, a lot going on. Give you a little bit more background about Judge McConaughey. He served in the Michigan House of Representatives in 2000 at the age of 27. Served 3 terms as a state representative, representing the 5th House District, which encompasses Northeast Detroit, Highland Park, and Hamtramck. And he is here now. We got those computers up. Joining us again, Chief
Yes.
Judge McConaughey. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you for inviting me, council member. It's an honor to be here. Today has been a little crazy. I had to start my day out by starting and teaching a class at Wayne County Community College. Then I had to end class early to be with my son at open house for the Detroit Kappa League. And now I'm here with you. So I'm ready to go. It is an honor to serve as the Chief Judge of the 36th District Court, which is the largest district court in the state of Michigan. As council member knows, I refer to it as the People's Court because more people come and do business in the 36th District Court than any other court in the state of Michigan, whether it is a landlord-tenant case, or whether it's a small claims case, whether it's a minor traffic offense, or whether it's a felony case. People have to interact with the 36th District Court. I became the chief of the court January 1 of 2020. And the first thing that I wanted to do was to make sure the court was more accessible to the people, because again, this is the people's court. I wanted to make sure our staff, I went around the court, myself and my chief pro tem, to meet each and every staff member. We have over 315 employees, but I wanted to meet every single one of them to let them know I appreciate what they do, but also to let them know that our salaries are paid for by the taxpayers of the city of Detroit. So we are to greet them with a smile. Whether they don't greet us with a smile, we're not going to give that energy back. And we want everyone, you're not going to have the most positive at all times experience at the court, but we want it to be much more pleasurable than what people thought about 36th District Court. We ended the ban on pens and pencils. Cell phones are allowed in 36th District Court.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I got to pause you right there, because that's one that I just blew my mind when that one came out. The ban on pens and pencils, that was one that was put in place prior to you coming into being the chief judge. That was one that I advocated for. That's one that many thought was just not in the best direction. What made you make that pivot immediately?
Because council member, the one thing everyone knows about you is that you're in the community. Your community group and your meetings are kind of legendary. I'm an East Sider, so I've always wanted to be invited over to the West to come to one of your meetings. So I thank you. But people, again, it's disrespectful for a citizen to come into their court and say you can't bring a pen or a pencil in because we're afraid you're going to write on the walls. Now they can go to Frank Murphy across the street. There's no fear of them writing on walls. They can go to Southfield, West Bloomfield, Birmingham. No one else. And I'm not going to treat our citizens poorly. And that was number one, because again, access. We want people to feel comfortable coming into their courthouse, and to say that you can't bring a writing utensil. It had to go, and it went January 1. And it's counterintuitive, but we want a person, again, to feel that they can come and conduct their business and not only not be disrespected, but feel respected. And we're going to treat them in a business-like manner. And so, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to have a relationship that was open with the council. You are the legislative body of the city of Detroit. I'm a former lawmaker. I understand that, you're gonna get it all. You're gonna get court issues. I mean, people are gonna ask you about evictions, like what I'm going to talk about. They're going to ask you about Zoom meetings. That has nothing to do with you. But because you're going to get that, I have to have a relationship with your body so that your legislative staff can answer those questions. So you can answer that question when you go to the dry cleaners or when you're at a Coney Island, wherever you are in the community. And that's why I want to have an open door with the council as well as the mayor's office, because we are three co-equal branches of government. We're independent branches, but we all have to work together because the citizens of Detroit, we represent them all. I am elected by the citizens of Detroit. You are elected by your district in the city of Detroit, and we all have a role to play in it. And so, again, that's why I also, and I'm gonna ramble a little bit. I now have a community relations liaison, Mr. Merlin Martin, which I believe he should be on the line right now, because even if I can't make all of the meetings that are across the city, I'm going to send someone that they can go to the meetings, take back the questions, the concerns from the citizens, bring it to me. I can answer it, either send the judge to the next month's meeting or send the answers back with Mr. Martin. And we're going to be more user friendly and we're going to be more accessible. So we're taking the court to the community now. And that's a lot. That's a big change that we're doing.
Wow. I mean, and you were appointed chief judge in January of 2020. Now,
yes, sir.
You know, that was literally 2 months prior to the pandemic, just really besieging the city of Detroit. I'm sure you didn't sign up for a pandemic chief judgeship,
no,
but that's what you inherited. It starts out one way, and then 2 months later, you've got a transition. What did that transition look like then, and how does it look now, Judge?
Well, the one thing that I try to be is proactive. And so we were working on from day one some things that actually helped save our court. We were working on a partnership with DivDat Corporation to start being able to take in funds at kiosks across the city, online payments, mobile app payments. We were working on something where you could pay a bond where you don't have to go to a jail to play. You could post it at a kiosk. We were starting to work on that. And when the court had to shut down, the way we were able to keep our revenue going was because we had started the groundwork in January, not knowing that it was going to be that essential. We did an amnesty program in May and June of last year that brought in more money in an amnesty program in 10 days than they had in the history of these other amnesty programs. And that's how we were able to keep our revenues, because you pass our budget, but you have an expectation that we're going to bring in a certain amount of money for court operations, so the city does not have to subsidize the court. And the only way we were able to make it was that we were lucky that we were already planning on new ways of bringing in revenue, different things. And I'd never heard of Zoom, Councilman Tate, before the pandemic, and literally never heard of it. So I went from one day never hearing of a technology to running a court via Zoom. I said earlier, I'm a professor at Wayne County Community College. I was teaching 4 classes that spring semester, all from a new technology. I was running a court from a new technology, and my kids were being educated at home through Microsoft Teams. And so it showed us that we got to be nimble. And I tell my staff this, and I tell the other judges, we're going to try innovative things. If they don't work, we're going to get off of it quick. But we're going to think, we're not going to just do things because it was done that way. So what we've learned is one of the biggest hardships and the reasons why people default on cases is that it's a hardship to come to court. It's a hardship to come downtown Detroit, pay high parking to park. There's not a lot of street parking around the court anymore. Child care, kids are at home right now, or even if you have younger kids, if people are taking care of elderly parents, it's a hardship. So sometimes people default on the traffic matter. Sometimes they default on a landlord-tenant case, and they're subject to an eviction just because they couldn't get to the physical court. By being able to have virtual court now, a person can Zoom in from work. They can Zoom in from the kitchen and mute themselves and tell the kids to be quiet for a second till they get through the hearing. But it has increased our participation in court. There was a lot of fear that people would not be able to get to court because of the technology divide that we have in the city of Detroit. And we had to really work. We had to adjourn cases sometimes. And every day we still have to tell people, put your audio on, you got to show you, you still work with it. But what we have seen is we have an increase and people actually complying and being able to be present. We don't have the same amount of missed cases on the landlord-tenant docket because of Zoom. And so, we're now, I'm going to, when we open back up completely, I'm going to still keep the options of having some virtual courtrooms. There are people that want to be in, they want to get that paperwork in their hand, they want to go to the cashier. I understand that. But for those, if I ever got a ticket, I don't want to go to a court. I'm gonna sit there and take care of it via Zoom. If I got to pay a fine, I'm gonna pay it on my phone and be done with it. And there are a lot of people that like that. So, council member, even when we open back up fully, we're gonna still have some virtual courtrooms for those that this is more convenient. And that's a switch that is here to stay.
Well, Judge, and we kind of transitioned to that, so we might as well get into it now. Here we are. The federal courts are still kind of, I think there's an appeal that's going on, so it's still a stay. So it's kind of still in effect, but at any given moment when the courts come back, it could change. The moratorium on nationwide evictions set to expire June 30th.
Yes.
Could be sooner, but at least up to June 30th. So what is the court anticipating? How is the court anticipating what could be a huge number of landlord-tenant evictions starting shortly thereafter?
And council member, again, this is a hot topic. I'm gonna give you just a little bit of history before I get right into that.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I did and we did at our court was when we saw this happening, and when the governor put a shelter in place order in. Because it was in the best interest. We had to lock this state down. We had to get these numbers under control. And people in Detroit, unfortunately, were dying at the highest rate in the state of Michigan from the coronavirus. When I read that there was a shelter in place order, I thought, well, if we're going to shelter in place, how can we evict someone when they would not even have a place to shelter in place? And so I did a moratorium that there were going to be no evictions in the city of Detroit. The governor, a few weeks later, did it for the state of Michigan, but we were going to do it first because we were going to protect our citizens. The moratorium, after the governor did that, then the federal government through the CDC did a federal moratorium for non-payment of rent cases. This is not all evict, and this is very clear. These are for non-payment of rent cases. So if you have a month-to-month lease, you can leave after giving you 30-day notice. You can leave. And the landlord actually can ask you, I just want to go in a different direction. Those are not covered under the non-payment of rent moratoriums. We still haven't seen that many of those, but that's not covered. Going forward now, after the federal government did their moratoriums, and there was no longer a need to have a city of Detroit only moratorium or a state of Michigan moratorium. President Biden has extended it to June 30th. There's some federal court, jostling going back and forth, but it's going to stay in effect until it's not January, to June 30th. And so what this program is that if a person fills out the needed paperwork and they submit that to the landlord and to the tenant, there's a stay. That just pauses the proceeding and it cannot move forward. Now, we are starting to see an uptick in eviction cases right now at the court. We're still not where we were typically. Typically, the 36th District Court has between 31 and 35,000 eviction cases, which is unreal, that amount of cases. But we're not at that pace, but we are anticipating that there is going to be an uptick. And what we have done to handle the impending uptick is we started this again, Councilman Tate, before we, knew that, no one knew that there was a pandemic coming. But something that always troubled me was our eviction rate in the 36th District Court. We evict higher. We have a higher eviction rate than every city that's typical of our size, economic attainment, educational level. So I'm not comparing us to wealthy. I'm talking about Cleveland, Newark, New Jersey, Chicago, Baltimore, the South Bronx. There's no reason that our eviction rate should be out of whack. We should all be about the same thing because we're dealing with the same type of population. But what my supposition was was the reason that our rates are so out of whack is that between 85 and 90% of the landlord tenant defendants that come before the court are unrepresented. Now, landlord tenant law is a very specialized law. Now, I've been a lawyer for over 21 years now. And when I became a judge, I'd never handled landlord tenant cases before. And I was definitely afraid of it because it's a lot of things that are formula driven. You got these dates, 10 days, 14, it's you know, and as a new judge, I was confused and a little bit nervous at this. And I was a seasoned lawyer, had been a legislator, had helped write law. Now, just being a person, just a regular lay person, I understand why there would be confusion. And landlords are represented 95% of the time. So you got 85% to 90 on one side with no representation, and almost completely representation on the plaintiff side. And I believe that's why we had these out of whack eviction rates. So we started working with the Detroit Bar Association and just start kicking out ways. What can we do to either get pro bono lawyers in? What can we do to get more assistance on our landlord tenant docket? When the pandemic hit, we were able to then continue those meetings with United Community Housing Coalition, Lakeshore Legal Aid, Michigan Legal Services. And because we're in Zoom, because we're doing the cases remotely, we can stick lawyers on each of those dockets. And so now when there's a case, between 90 and 95% of the people now are represented. And those who are not represented is because they're turning down representation. But we now have lawyers that are there. And it was because the groundwork started before the pandemic, but because of the new technology, we don't have to have, you know, a million lawyers there with all these people that were, you know, in the hallway and in the courtroom. It works well. And so how we're going to combat this, and it's a long answer, Councilman Tate, but how we're going to combat this though is through representation, is through having the landlords and the defense attorney and the defendants know there are Sherriff funds that are available. There are ways in which the landlords can have an infusion in money, because you have a lot of landlords who are, you know, own one or two houses. They may have a mortgage on their house. They may not have had rent in months. They're struggling. I know you're getting those calls. Yeah. I get those calls. My father, and I was growing up, it was a block on Miller Street on the east side between Miller and Mount Elliott, where he owned some houses over there. And he taught me how to go and collect rent when I was 16 years old. And that's hard. It's hard collecting rent sometimes. But I know if my father didn't have that rent money for a year or something like that, that would have been a hardship on my family. So I am sensitive to that. And so the Sherriff funds now and the eviction diversion programs, it will pay the rent and give assistance going back and prospective help. So that takes care of making sure we have stable housing stock for our residents, as well as making sure the landlords are equally compensated. So the Sherriff funds are there, and the eviction diversion program has been a big help in paying for funds for indigent defendants and people who need rent assistance, and to make sure landlords are made whole. And so one last thing, and I'll go to your question, is the eviction diversion hotline is 866-313-2520, or if you can just go to www.detroitevictionhelp.com. They will walk you through the process, put you in contact with one of those legal services, whether it's UCH or Lakeshore Legal Aid or Michigan Legal Services. They're going to put you together so that you can have some help getting this paperwork. And I would ask all tenants that are watching this, don't wait to the last minute, because there's a delay in mail. The process could have already started. And also the lawyers are overwhelmed right now, but start that process, make the call, because there is help. And we have been planning for this. I mean, we didn't actually think the moratorium was going to extend to June 30th. So the staff at the court is ready. The lawyers are ready. And is Sean Jacquet on here right now? He's my deputy general counsel from the court. He has done so much in helping organize what we do to make sure that we have these resources for both sides, because you have to make sure landlords are made as whole as possible. And then we also have to make sure that we have a stable housing stock. And the last thing, we're going to make sure that these landlords and property owners go through the inspection process so that we can make sure that these properties are up to code, that you're not using the court to evict people, and you're not following the law and having your place inspected and it's up to code in the first place. So you guys have passed the ordinance. You guys have been asking, when is this going to start being enforced? It's being enforced now.
And you're just such a breath of fresh air. We appreciate you, Chief Judge. A man who says something, keeps his word, and works to forge relationships and find new solutions. So that's all we can really ask for a partner in government, but then even more so as a resident who's looking for leadership in government. So thank you for that. Reg, do we have that slide that we can put up really quickly for those resources? And then we want, Judge, we're going to go to questions as well, because we got a few of them for you. Reg, do we have that slide available with the resources? All right. So Judge McConaughey mentioned some of these services, but some of them also are areas where you can get information and assistance that are not solely through the 36th District Court, but there are a number of partners who we're working with to try to keep folks out of foreclosure, and also eviction prevention resources also there. So we're going to make sure we have that slide shown at the end of the a meeting as well, along with the rest of our resources. But I wanted to let folks know that indeed we do have these numbers, so you don't have to go crazy about where are the numbers. They're coming up. They're coming up as we have here. All right, so Judge, we have a few questions for you. I believe we have our first question, Aisha, on Zoom. Who's our first caller on Zoom?
Our first caller is Josh.
Josh, good morning. Thank you for joining us. You're on with Chief Judge McConaughey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? I have some points that I have missed parts of your interview, but I think it applies. I've been bouncing around I'm a layman, and I've been bouncing around in the court system a little bit, and it doesn't feel like we need the charity of pro bono lawyers. It feels like we need the knowledge of how to bring a complaint, be a pro se litigant to the court. Do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, I'm going to be biased, Josh. I always believe that the system works a little more effectively if you use practitioners that this is what they specialize in, i.e. lawyers. We can have people who are, they know things about medicine, but I think it's better if you have a medical issue to go to a doctor or to deal with someone that has medical training. However, there's always, whether it is a civil matter or if it is a criminal matter, there's always room for pro bono, not pro bono, I'm saying per se litigants, whether it's a pro se defendant that wants to represent themselves in a criminal or misdemeanor traffic matter, or a pro se plaintiff in a civil landlord-tenant matter. The civil division, our clerks and staff, they cannot give legal advice. That's where the working your way around the court, that is the knowledge that's normally ascertained from being a practitioner. But they can walk. They can walk through the process though of making sure your files are in at certain times. But what type of case are you? What type of case are you specifically referencing?
Many
criminal or civil matters.
Civil, but it's
it is civil. Okay.
You can be a pro se defendant. That's easy enough. But if you have to bring the complaint, now you're talking knowledge, and no one knows this knowledge except you go through law school. There's no real good example of how to do it. No one's learning how to do it in high school. There's nobody trying to help you, and the clerks, like you said, can't help you. So there's got to be a work around it, and it's like a classism. If there isn't somebody that can access the judiciary, no matter what, then that's a classism, because now you're relying on charity.
Well, I don't think you're not relying on charity. The services that are being the services that are being provided in lawyers and resources are coming from taxpayers. So when we have court-appointed attorneys that are there on criminal matters, they're not there out of the kindness of their heart. They're being paid for it. That money.
Bringing a
That money
complaint,
is
though, I'm
being.
talking
Hey,
about.
Josh, hold on.
Yes, yes.
Let's Judge McConaughey finish, please.
And when it comes to filing civil complaints, yeah, you're always going to be at some sort of a disadvantage if you are filing a civil complaint versus a represented side. So that is why the court is trying to provide lawyers there, whether it is through law clerks from law schools, whether we have an internship program with some other schools that are going to be there to provide some technical assistance that is not legal assistance. So that's the best answer I can have for you, because there's not going to be a way to completely teach a person how to work their way through a case. That's why people, they go to law school or they become paralegals, and they get that type of training at school also. But I do thank you for that question, and we're going to try to make sure the process is easy as possible. Sure.
Josh, you got, oh, I think we lost him. Who's our next caller? Aisha, do we have another caller?
Yes, so we have a caller from the number 534.
All right. Caller ending in 534. You go ahead with your question, concern, comment.
Yes, good morning. I think that's great. Good morning. I think that's great that you're helping people out with evictions. I think that's great that, even though I don't like all this virtual government, but what you were discussing about facilitating people showing up at court without having to drive and park and all of that, you know, I'm glad to hear that some of that can be implemented beyond the COVID. Before I get to my question, I do want to say regarding the last caller, over at the federal court, there's a lovely lady, I'm forgetting her name, but super lovely, and she helps pro bono people out. So, I mean, she can't sort of give them legal advice, but she kind of helps them.
If you have her name, say her name. If not, we just want to make sure we respect Judge McConaughey's time here. You have a question? If you have
I am. Well, but this is for the people here too. So I can't remember her name, and I should, because she's fabulous and she deserves all that recognition. So maybe something like that could be made. But here's my question. Just like you said, you know, first of all, another thing I want to say is, in terms of, the other gentleman mentioned the pro se defendants. I just want to say that I watched Judge Roberta Archer with a pro se defendant, and she's the nicest judge I've ever seen with a pro per defendant. And so hopefully you can give her some leadership positions and help that out, help the other judges to become more like her, because, you know, it should be about the defendant's constitutional rights when it comes to criminal law. And so I was very impressed with how respectful and understanding of how it can be a daunting experience, and how she treated that pro per defendant that I saw. I was just truly amazed. So I can't say enough about her about that. Now, regarding the other things, though, here's a suggestion. Because I was falsely arrested before in another state. I've been through the court system, and I was subsequently declared factually innocent. But let me tell you, the experience going through the court was a better experience, because that court issued minute orders. But I don't know how you would do that virtually. But when a defendant walks out of the courtroom, they have a piece of paper, and it tells them what just happened. Now that's a little, and I wish that could be done, although I don't know, I guess virtually, I guess something could be emailed, because sometimes the defendant is a deer in a headlight, right? And they you know, may go back to try and figure out what happened, and, you know, that's why that piece of paper would be helpful. On that note, too, it would be nice if the judges would write opinions in response to motions filed by the defendants, because I heard one judge say she feels from the.
Can I answer the first one real quick? You
Hold on one second.
presently, if you, let's just,
Chief Judge,
yeah.
because I want to make sure that we have time for the other callers as well. So Joanne, what's your last question? And then we're going to make sure we're going to give Judge an opportunity to answer your questions.
Oh, no, that was it. Minute orders, and can the judges write responses, and can Roberta Archer train everybody else how to treat pro per defendants?
All right, thank you so much, Joanne.
On to Judge Archer. I'm going to send Judge Archer a text immediately with your kind words, and I will talk to her about that. As to minute opinions, once a case is resolved and a decision is entered, it is entered into the system, and you can get a copy of that. There have been times, especially on the traffic docket, where I have encouraged people to go downstairs to get, or they get paperwork in the hallway, and I tell them to keep that in your car with you. So just in case there's an issue with the Secretary of State and there's some sort of a lag, that you'll have proof that your matter was dismissed or what the plea was, or that you paid your costs. So at this very time, you can get that. That's not anything that's new. You can get that right now at 36th District Court. As to opinions, opinions are written, and I'm not sure what judge told you that they don't write opinions, but if there is a written opinion, written responses are given. There are times in which there is an oral motion and a judge will answer and make an oral ruling, but written motions are answered in written form. And I can, our attorney that's on, again, Attorney Sean Jacquet, helps write those opinions. So so they come out all the time. So that we're doing that also. And I think that's all three of the questions.
All right, appreciate you, Judge. Got one from Facebook, Aaron Hall. Who do we have from Facebook? What's their question?
We have our DBL, Ms. Tanisha Johnson, with a question asking, are there any programs in place to support landlord-tenant cases regarding commercial properties?
Oh, Judge, you're on mute.
I did it all. I muted myself, stopped my video. Okay, sorry about that. Is it possible to bring Attorney Jacquet in to answer that question?
Tim, can we bring her in? What's the last name, Judge?
His first name is Sean. Last name is Jacquet. Jacke.
I see the name up there. Tim, can we bring him over?
And while they're bringing Attorney Jacquet in, commercial properties have been exempt from all of the eviction moratoriums, whether it was mine, whether it was the state, and whether it was the federal. Commercial properties have been exempted, and commercial evictions have never paused because they've been treated differently than residential non-payment of rent cases.
Attorney Jacquet, we can see you now and hear you. Thanks for joining us this morning as well. Anything you want to add?
No, thank you, Councilman Tate. No, I think Judge McConicle did an awesome job there. He's correct and stated it very well. There have been no programs for commercial properties because typically commercial litigants are in a better position financially to resolve their issues, where on a more personal residential level, those are people who really need a lot more help.
Aisha, I believe we have one additional caller on Zoom. Is that correct?
We had one question in the chat that asks, when will jury duty notices restart?
I actually saw that. That's that question. I mean, that answer is actually one thing that's not in my discretion. The state court administrator's office out of Lansing, there's a metric that all courts have to meet in order to do jury trials. It's tied to positivity rates. It's tied to the amount of bed space in the district. And right now we are in phase 2 of our reopening. We were just brought out of phase 1 after our numbers have dropped. And so there are, at this very moment, there are no courts that are in southeastern Michigan that are in phase 3 and are allowed to do jury trials. So there are some courts who are sending out jury summons and then they're canceling them after, right before it comes. I'm not sure why some courts are sending them out, but I would not anticipate there being any jury trials for at least another 60 days in the city of Detroit, and possibly another 90 days. But it's all based on people socially distancing, wearing masks, and getting vaccinated. The quicker that stuff occurs, then we'll be able to do jury trials. Then we'll be able to do more in-person hearings. But it's all based on numbers. And even when we first come back to phase 3, for each individual jury trial, I have to send up to Lansing saying I need to have a jury trial in courtroom in Ronald Giles's courtroom in this type of case, and they have to approve each individual jury trial. That's how stringent it is right now with our reopening. But the answer is it's not going to happen for another 2 to 3 months.
All right. Judge, I know we were sent a few slides. Did you want to show those slides right now, or did you believe that you hit on the items already?
Well, I think I touched on them, but the Sarah program is one I know Attorney G. Case sent this morning. It's very important because there's a lot of money right now that can be accessed, and there was eviction diversion money that was just languishing, and the city of Detroit has this access. This money is there. Please call that hotline 866-313-2520. There's help. There's help. There's help. And this is one thing that, again, the city of Detroit has done a phenomenal job with this. Council has shown great leadership. The mayor's office has done a great job with this. And we've been supported by Lansing on this. This is the one time where everybody's moving in the same direction. But now we need the citizens to get this money. The money is set there. Take advantage of it. Stay in your house. Let's get the landlords made whole. Let's get yourself made whole. And again, it's not just paying past rent. There's assistance moving forward. And so please call, and there's people that they can direct you to the help. And that's all I would say.
All right. So just last question for me, and then we're going to let you go. You had a long day already this morning. So we're talking about in 60 to 90 days, jury trials potentially beginning again. Jury summons rather beginning again. There may be some folks who are hesitant or maybe using that as their excuse for not wanting to come and serve. We know that historically it's been a challenge for some folks to participate in jury trials. Can you give us the best pitch that you can as 36th District Court Chief Judge on why it's important for residents, specifically residents in the city of Detroit, to participate in the civic duty of being a juror when being summoned?
The best pitch I can give you is a story from about 3 years ago. My wife, African-American woman from Detroit, was on a trial at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. And, I put her business out. She wasn't that enthused about going to jury duty, but I was like, listen, you got to do it. So she went to jury duty. She was selected. 2 African-American women on the panel, 10 white citizens on the panel, African-American defendant. When they went into the jury box, the jury room, the white citizens were ready to convict and get out of there. My wife and the other African-American woman were in there. They were like, no, we got to discuss some things. They went from, they didn't even want to discuss it, just wanted to convict, to ultimately the gentleman was acquitted. And I tell people that you want to have, if it was your son, if it was your daughter, your niece, or yourself on a trial, you would want to have a person like you on that jury. You don't outsource justice to other people. Okay, we complain about there being, justice is separate for African Americans, and we're treated differently in the criminal justice system, or even on a civil trial. But how you even the scales, and you got, if a person's guilty, they're guilty. If they're innocent, they're innocent. But we've got to be in the room. We've got to be in the table. And if we don't have diverse juries, we're going to have unjust decisions that come out of jury rooms. And so you need people to have your experiences, the people that came from your neighborhoods, went to your school, that can sit in those jury rooms and give your experience when that deliberation is happening. So always think about it. If it was your family member that was sitting at that table, would you want a person like you in that jury room? And the answer is going to be, of course you would. So, we're going to keep you safe. We're going to have you properly socially distanced. We're changing where potential jurors will be housed. You're not going to sit in the box next to each other. We're going to use the whole courtroom to have you spaced out. So you won't even be sitting next to each other. We're going to bring witnesses in one at a time. So we're not going to have all these people in the courtroom. People who want to view it will view it via Zoom or via YouTube, but you're going to be spaced out in the courtroom. There's going to be plexiglass up. We're going to got hand sanitizer everywhere. You will be safe, but you got to come. And I don't want to say you got to come because it's a misdemeanor if you're scared. No, we're not worried about criminal sanctions. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. And if it was you would want someone like you on that jury. So, and Councilman Tate, I really appreciate you asking that question. I did a symposium 5 years ago on the need for African-American participation. Now lawyers throw us off the jury pool or Detroit us off the juries because we got to deal with that type of inequity. But we're hurting the inequity by not showing up. They only have to throw us off the jury pool doing jury selection if we don't even come down. So we got to get in there. You got to get in the game. Do your civic duty.
36th District Court Chief Judge William McConaughey, thank you so much for joining us. We
Thank you, sir.
your team for being here, all the great information, and hopefully we can give you a call back and have you come. I know it's been a very challenging first year.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back next year to get an update on things, if not before.
We'd love to be here. And again, please, anytime, contact my office. We'll be here. And thank you for doing this and being accessible to your community. I really appreciate what you do, Councilman Tate.
Absolutely. You take care, brother. Be safe. Be
All right,
well.
you too.
Stay blessed.
Yep, you too, sir.
All right. So now we're getting close to, we're in overtime right now, but we've got a very special video that we want to show you about a brand new park that was started by a gentleman by the name of Michael Williams. It's a park that's dedicated to his now deceased mother, Etheldra May Williams. We had an opportunity to visit an event he had at the park this past Saturday. Wonderful event. Reggie, if you can cue that video and roll it, I think you'll enjoy what you see.
Good afternoon, I'm Michael Williams and I am with the Williams Park Alliance. And right now we are here over at what we call the Etheldra May Williams Park. Approximately 4 years ago, I started buying property over here in the Brightmoor community. Most of the property was blighted and was predisposed to illegal dumping and nefarious activities. And I looked at this property and I said this would be an actual gem. So I purchased some of the property through the Wayne County auction, through the Detroit Land Bank and the Michigan Land Bank, and I developed a park. And I named this park after my dearly departed mother. So Etheldra May Williams is the name of the park here. And it's a beautiful park. Today we're having what we call Friends with Classics. This is our spring show, and we have classic vehicles that are from 1990 and older, or shall I say more seasoned, because nothing is old, everything gets better. So from 1990 and above, we've got classic vehicles out here. What's pulling up right now looks to be a modified Model T, but we're going to have to ask the owner specifically what it is. We are out here in the Brightmoor community, and again, the Brightmoor community, no matter where you go, people always talk disdainfully about it, let's say. And the Brightmoor community is a gem, and I think that this park shows specifically what it is that this gem has to offer here in the middle of classic Detroit urbanness. So Brightmoor here, we've got the Etheldra May Williams Park. We are soon to be building a pavilion called the Junius Williams Pavilion. We're looking to do an 1/8 of a mile walking trail. We want to do lots of things that would engage the community to come out and be a part of what used to be the degradation of a community gone by. So Etheldra May Williams Park right here. We've got our Friends with Classic Cars meetup. We'll be here until 5 p.m. today and tomorrow, Sunday, May 16th. It's absolutely free to display. It's absolutely no entry to get in. So come on out, enjoy Brightmoor, enjoy the Etheldra May Williams Park.
All right. We want to thank Michael Williams, Mr. Michael Williams, for putting all the effort, the sweat and tears, and I've talked to him in putting this memorial park together for his mom and really making it available for the community. I look forward to supporting him and the rest of the neighbors over in Brightmoor moving forward, making sure that that park becomes exactly what the community needs. All right, so that takes us pretty much to the end of our morning District 1 monthly meeting. But before we go, we've got a few items we want to share. This upcoming week, we're going to have a forum. We talked about it today. There is a lot of folks who are still hesitant to obtain the COVID vaccine. We've got 3 of them that are out there right now, federally approved. They're absolutely free, accessible in numerous places, downtown, in the neighborhoods. But there's still a number of folks, you know them, I know them, who are still hesitant to get the vaccine. Some of them have rationales and reasons that are a little out there, you know, microchips inside of the vaccine, and others are more concerned about the history of the medical profession and its challenging history with communities of color. There's a number of reasons why we have folks who are hesitant to receive this vaccine. We want to have real information that's out there, not just internet chatter about the vaccine. So we have joining with us this upcoming Wednesday, health communication specialist, Naveen Elder. She's with the health department, but also with the CDC Foundation. She's going to join us to provide us information on the vaccine. We're also going to be joined by some folks, similar to myself, who was extremely hesitant early on, but based on conversations and real information, made the decision that it was best in weighing the two to get the vaccine. Again, I was in that category, so I understand the hesitancy, but we're in a situation where we got to figure this out collectively together. Lots of information on May 26th at 6 p.m. That's the Zoom coordinates coming up right there. And then last but not least, Reg, where's that other one? The parking, there we go. Oh man, there's been so many complaints about the parking in the bike lanes along the Grand River streetscape. We've done videos about it. We've done informationals about it. Well, now we try to do the education. I thought that would work. Unfortunately for some folks, that wasn't enough. So we got a hold to the parking enforcement officers with Municipal Parking Department. And yes, they are handing out tickets along Grand River streetscape for those folks who are parking in the bike lanes. It is very clear on this flyer. You don't park where it's designated bike lanes. You can park where you are designated a parking space for the vehicle. Really clear. The team, a Discovery One team, went out and handed these flyers to the businesses along Grand River. Shout out to Aaron Hall for the great work there. Went out, passed the flyers. They're out in the businesses. You can also share this information with your neighbors as well. Please, if you have the ability to share information, let them know this, because it could really save them from obtaining a $45 ticket. We don't want that. That brings us to the end of this District 1 monthly meeting. I want to thank my team for all the work that they've done today, putting this meeting together. Had a number of events this past weekend, this week. Great job, tremendous effort. Until next time, District 1, thank you again for allowing us to share these few hours with you on a Saturday morning. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday as well. Until then, God bless, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.